Hi, my name is Åsta Haukås and I'm from the University of Bergen. And later on, you'll also meet my colleague Irina Tiurikova, also from Bergen. The topic of our talk today is teachers' views on the intersection of multilingualism and intercultural competence in language learning in school settings. So we do mainly research on multilingualism in school settings in Norway, and we would claim that Norway, as most other countries as well, is truly multilingual. In school, all pupils learn Norwegian from the first school year, or they learn Sami, a group of indigenous languages in the very north. And we also have two different varieties of Norwegian. So you choose one of them in the first school year, and in school year 8, you take also the other one. So you learn two different varieties. English is also taught from the very first school year, but also English is omnipresent all around in the Norwegian society. From school year 8, so when pupils are around 13 years old, they can choose to learn French, German, and Spanish as well. And around 75 to 80% of the pupils decide to do so. In addition to all of this, we have an increasing number of pupils with immigrant backgrounds. So immigrant languages are also spoken and learned in the homes and in some schools as well. We think that around 18% of the pupils have an immigrant background or are born to parents with immigrant backgrounds. In 2019, we got a new curriculum for every school subject, so including the language subjects. And we're happy to note that all of them emphasize the value of being multilingual, and also that intercultural understanding is important in today's society and also to become global citizens. And this is an example from the curriculum of foreign languages, where we see that 2 of the 4 core elements are of special interest to us. Multilingualism is mentioned here, and also intercultural competence, although we have to note that these terms are not defined in the curriculum. So in our Ungspråk project, which started in 2018 and will last until 2022, we wanted to do research on teenagers who learn 2 or 3 languages in school and may even know more languages from outside of school, to explore their multilingual identity, their multilingual habits, and also the interconnection between multilingualism and intercultural competence. We should note that also Andres Stoto is part of the project as a PhD candidate. We won't go into detail about the whole project here and now, but if you're interested, you're very welcome to read our publications, and 2 of these are listed here. The first one gives an outline of the whole project and what our aims are for the Ungspråk project. And by the way, Ungspråk means young language or young languages, and depending on how the pupils see themselves and to what extent they see themselves as multilingual or not. And the second article describes how we developed and validated a questionnaire that we use to explore the young learners' multilingualism and multilingual identity. So we've already said that we think that Norway is a truly multilingual country, and also that the pupils are multilingual, all of them, learning 2, 3 or more languages simultaneously in school and also outside of school. But what about the pupils themselves? Do they define themselves as multilingual, and what about the society at large? In this article, I argue that the main approach to multilingualism and talking about multilingualism in Norway is quite different than how we see it, because most people tend to only refer to those with immigrant backgrounds as multilinguals, and then leaving out all others who also learn and use multiple languages in their daily lives. However, in this article, I also show that the majority of the pupils in our Ungspråk study said that yes, we are multilingual. So the official or public approaches and views of who the multilinguals are in Norway are quite different from the ones of the pupils who most of them see themselves as multilingual. So now we have a language curriculum where multilingualism and also intercultural understanding or intercultural competence are emphasized. But of course, we know that nothing will happen in schools unless the teachers are willing and able to make the change. The teachers are the key actors of implementing change in schools. So what are their beliefs about multilingualism? How do they understand multilingualism and intercultural competence, and to what extent do they see these terms as related? In a focus group study that I published a few years ago, I interviewed teachers of this particular age group. So these were teachers of French, German, and Spanish. But they also taught English and Norwegian, most of them, about their beliefs about multilingualism and a multilingual pedagogical approach. Most of them were quite positive about the idea of being multilingual for themselves, but at the same time, they didn't do much about it in school, so to say. They didn't really know what to do to enhance the pupils' multilingualism. And also there was not really any collaboration across language subjects in their particular schools. So this study about teachers' beliefs about multilingualism was done a few years ago, but now we've got a new curriculum, and we were then very interested in looking into what teachers now understand by the terms multilingualism and intercultural competence, who are now become core elements in the new curriculum, and how they relate this to foreign language teaching. We were also interested in seeing or exploring to what extent and how the teachers see these two phenomena as interrelated.
Thank you very much for introducing the Ungspråk project, Åsta, and so nicely introducing this particular study. In what follows, I will tell you how we answered our research questions and talk more about the findings and implication of our research. So to answer our research questions, we conducted semi-structured interviews with 6 teachers of foreign languages. In interviews, we asked them to clarify their understanding of intercultural competence and multilingualism, and we also asked them to tell a little bit about their views on how these two elements are described in the curriculum. In the final part, we asked teachers if they see multilingualism and intercultural competence as interconnected, and in which way. The participants were recruited from 5 secondary schools in Western Norway, and since the data was collected in autumn 2020, our participants were given an opportunity to participate digitally. An approximate duration of each interview was around 45 minutes, and to analyze the data, we used a method of qualitative content analysis. And we got quite interesting results and findings. In connection to the first question, we found that all teachers except one defined being multilingual as knowing or speaking more than 1 or 2 languages. Only one teacher argued that knowing 3 languages makes you really multilingual. Several teachers also included the knowledge of dialects and both standard variations of Norwegian, bokmål and nynorsk, as part of being multilingual. And interesting to mention that one teacher also emphasized that being multilingual includes both linguistic and cultural knowledge. And in this way, this teacher already connected multilingualism and intercultural competence together. Almost all teachers said that their students are already multilingual, and in this way they reflected the statement that was articulated in the curriculum, because the curriculum states that when students start learning a foreign language in school, they are already multilingual. And only one teacher said that students are not multilingual yet, however, they're becoming multilingual. As for intercultural competence, some teachers hesitated to formulate their thoughts regarding this concept, and this already gives us an idea that this concept might be difficult for understanding, and especially difficult in the way of how it might be implemented in the real practice. Nevertheless, all teachers connected intercultural competence to cultural knowledge, which was understood as knowledge of history, traditions, and social norms in L3 speaking countries. The main difference, however, was in how teachers connected this intercultural competence to other aspects. And for example, between these aspects, we can name focus on differences between different ethnic and national groups. However, most of teachers emphasize that not only differences are important, not only knowledge about differences, but also knowledge about similarities and diversity in general. Moreover, diversity not only within context or across context, but both within and across national borders. Other teachers connected intercultural competence to understanding and the ability to be understood in an intercultural dialogue. And there was also a third position, which reflects mostly non-essentialist position, non-essentialist views to intercultural competence. And teachers who support this view on intercultural competence suggested that intercultural competence is connected also to reflection on identity of the self and others, and also to reflection on different lifestyles, and in this way to reflection on culture understood beyond ethnic and national borders. To illustrate the difference between essentialist and non-essentialist views on intercultural competence, I would like to provide examples of two quotations taken from different interviews. The first one that reflects essentialist views is the following. You can tell that a French person is like this, a Norwegian person is like that, and I think it is important if you are going to meet someone who is a stranger for you. The second quote that reflects a non-essentialist view is the following. Intercultural competence doesn't have to do anything with if they're Swedish or Polish or English. We have different cultures, like this school. It has one culture, and the family has one culture. Culture doesn't have to be exotic. In connection to the second research question, our analysis showed that all teachers see multilingualism and intercultural competence as interconnected, however, to a certain extent. The first way of interpreting this interconnection is based on the idea that both elements refer to raising students' awareness about cultural and linguistic differences. And in this case, differences were emphasized while similarities were not mentioned. And this perspective was reproduced by teachers who associated intercultural competence mainly with the knowledge about differences between different ethnic and national groups. Other teachers, on the contrary, emphasized that the connection between multilingualism and intercultural competence is in the ability to see connections, similarities, to see differences. In this way, to see diversity within and across countries' cultural and linguistic diversity. Other teachers also mentioned that both elements are about understanding, about to understand people, other people, and to be understood, and to be able to establish a dialogue. And the third position on the interconnection between multilingualism and intercultural competence referred to the idea that both elements are about metacognition, about students' reflection on identities of the self and the other. And here, as an illustration, I provide a quote from one of our interviews, and the teacher who expressed this position on the connection between intercultural competence and multilingualism said, you have to have this meta focus in both areas, intercultural competence and multilingualism. On the one hand, you get to know yourself much better, how you're working, what kind of learning strategies you are using. And on the other hand, through reflection on your own and others' ways of living, you better understand yourself. Concerning teachers' understanding of multilingualism, we can conclude that their beliefs to a large extent reflect the notion of multilingualism expressed in the curriculum. And in general, almost all teachers see their students as multilingual or as becoming multilingual. And in this way, they consider multilingualism as a resource. And this result parallels results of the previous study from my colleague, Åsta Haukås, saying that teachers see multilingualism really as an opportunity. Regarding intercultural competence, we can conclude that while essentialist views still pursue among teachers, most educators tend to have a non-essentialist perspective. And the third conclusion that we can make is that teachers' understanding of the interconnection between multilingualism and intercultural competence to a great extent depends on their views on both elements. And actually, both elements can be fostered in a non-essentialistic perspective if the following elements are emphasized in language learning education. And these elements are an exploratory approach to linguistic and cultural diversity within and across borders, with focus not only on differences, of course, but similarities and diversity in general. Then focus on mutual understanding, teaching students to understand and to be understood, and promoting students' reflection on identity of the self and the others, and understand identity not only as related to ethnicity or nationality, but as diverse identity as composed by different factors such as gender, age, belonging to social groups, etc. And regarding the implications of our research, we can say that our study proves that multilingual and intercultural approaches in language learning can really foster each other if the elements mentioned earlier are emphasized in foreign language teaching. However, our study also raises some issues. For example, it raises the issue of teachers' awareness and training, which needs to be promoted, and that also brings an issue of practices. In many our interviews, we heard from teachers that even though they consider both elements as interconnected, they still need more knowledge about best practices, how it can be done in a school context, how it can be done in the class. Thank you very much for listening to our presentation, and we would like to invite you to visit the webpage of our project, the project Ungspråk, that Åsta presented earlier, and there you will find also more on findings of this particular study, and of course more other studies that were conducted in the framework of the Ungspråk project. Thank you very much.